hoje nem tem hora de chegar. Sempre de licença muda a nossa vida, depois convida a rir ou chorar. Nessa estrada não nos cabe conhecer ou ver o que virá por fim dela. Ninguém sabe bem ao certo onde vai dar. Vamos todos numa linda passarela de uma aquarela que enfim descolorirá. Descolorirá. Numa folha qualquer desenho um sol amarelo. E com ciclos e setas é fácil fazer um castelo. Com o lápis em torno da mão inventou uma luva. E se faço chover com dois riscos tem guarda-chuva.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our 8th annual Hispanic Latino Studies Summer Institute. I am Christian Meza, a graduating senior from Palm Beach Central High School. I am also the student representative for the Hispanic Education Coalition of Palm Beach County. At this time, our friends from Forest Hill High School will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance in both English and Spanish.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yo prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la República con una nación bajo Dios, entera, con justicia y libertad para todos.
Thank you. Great job by our friends at Forest Hill High School. Now, please join me in welcoming Maria Bidu and Cesar Gallegos for a special performance, both students from West Boca High School.
Recuerdo aquel día como si fuera hoy. No hay nadie como ella, ni siquiera me encontró. Recuerdo todavía vez que la besé. Fue mi primer amor, y ahora escribo su canción. Hay algo más inexplicable como su mirada, inigualable como la manera que me cela y trata de disimular que no está mal. Voy a cuidarte por las noches, voy a amarte sin reproches, te voy a extrañar en la tempestad. Y aunque existan mis razones para renunciar, no hay nadie más. Se elevó todo, se elevó tristeza, ya no existe espacio la melancolía, porque a tu lado todo tiene más razón. Elementos agregaron risas, cuando somos lágrimas paraliza, se paraliza. Hay algo más inexplicable como su mirada, inigualable como la manera que me cela y trata de disimular que no está mal. Voy a cuidarte por las noches, voy a amarte sin reproches, te voy a extrañar en la tempestad. Y aunque existan mis razones para renunciar, no hay nadie más. No quiero a nadie más. No quiero a nadie más. Nadie.
Fantastic job. Thank you very much, Maria and Cesar. Buen trabajo. Excelente.
Thank you.
Now, please
Gracias.
join me in welcoming Patricia Trejo, the Administrative Program Planner for Hispanic Latino Studies for the School District of Palm Beach County.
Wow. Well, good morning and good afternoon. It's amazing to see so many joining us today from all over the nation, believe it or not, from California, New York, Utah, Iowa. I saw someone from Colorado and even Canada. How amazing is that? And what a great opening as well from our students. Let's show them some spirit fingers. Spirit fingers. They did an amazing job. You know, today it is about our students, for our students. So we want to make sure that we have an amazing virtual experience because we know at the end it's going to benefit them in the end. Here in Florida, we have a Florida State Statute 1003.42, letter P, as I always like to say, as in Patricia. And basically what it emphasizes is the importance of teaching our students Hispanic contributions made to the United States. So today we are going to take you on a journey, and we're going to start off with having our featured speaker, Consuelo Castillo Kickbusch, who within her own right has made her own personal significant contributions to the United States. She is the highest ranking Hispanic woman in the combat support field of the United States Army. She was a lieutenant colonel, and of course she's retired. And so we celebrate her significant contributions made to the United States. She's also a founder and president of the Educational Achievement Services Incorporation. She's a motivational speaker, an educator, and an author of The Journey to the Future, a roadmap for success for youth, and for 4 steps to not allowing the pandemic to affect your home, which was co-authored with Roy Juarez Jr. So please help me with some spirit fingers, welcoming Mrs. Consuelo Castillo Kickbusch.
Ay, mil gracias, Patricia, y qué honor. Les hablo primero en el idioma que heredé de mis lindos padres, siendo hija migrantes de México. Saludos. Thank you, Patricia. I always love to speak my first tongue, which is Spanish. I inherited that great gift from my parents, who came from Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico. And saludos and greetings to all of our hermanos, hermanas from all over. But we know that today it's about the 8th Annual Hispanic Latino Studies Summer Institute. And it's about sharing what we know as Latino X, as Hispanics, as Chicanos, as we can be all of these things, right? Is our stories, our gifts, our love, because that's who we are. We're about mucho cariño. And I am a storyteller. So today I wanted to think back through history. What is it that is about our culture that we sometimes don't think about those meanings that are beyond what we just see? And so during this pandemic, I found myself sheltered, and I found myself thinking deeper about all of us, humanity, about our gente. And I know that this humble message will be listened to mostly by educators, administrators. I pray that the words will touch some place greater than just your mind, and that's your heart, tu corazón. So my story starts with a symbology that I grew up with, and that's the nopal. So I call it the nopalitos. When you first look at a nopal, if you've ever been around them, the cactus, you'll say, ay, no te le acerques, don't get near there. You know, it has thorns, it can hurt you. But for me, I'm going to use the story of the nopal because it's so personal to me. And for some of who are listening today, and as with students also listen who have joined us, and by the way, those angelic voices, it brought a tear to my eye because that's what it's about, right? It's about them. So the growing up along the border, I grew up with father and mother that believed that there was never the word no to our neighbors, and that the nopal was a spirit food for us. Later on, I guess they call it now a superfood, pero bueno. Today, back then it was our spirit food. Why do I say that? Because when you look at the nopal, it is not just thorns. It actually feeds us. And growing up in my community in the barrio, we were always having familia come. And there was always a question when you grow up with 10 children, parents, as to what do I do with feeding? Because you always have a place to eat. So the nopal for me represents hope and love and sharing. So using this word nopal, I decided that I would put it in the context of what we're experiencing today with this pandemic. So I share these humble words. I'm only going to focus on one letter because I know that we have many, many wonderful speakers, colegas, scholars, and I don't want to take any more of their time. So what does that N stand for in my eyes? For all of us educators, is to never, never give up. Our children are priceless. They come, it is for us to see their gifts and open those gifts. So nunca, nunca te rindas. Nuestros hijos no tienen precio. The next letter is O. What about that O? When we're teaching, I hope that you'll embrace the idea to look for the unforeseen opportunity. Our children are storytellers themselves. So as you blend in your studies, your essays, you know, it's through their stories that we can all become, as we say, human beings, actually being human. So I continue. What does the P represent for me? Well, it's about planning and preparing. And in that planning and preparing, I hope that you will ask the students, what is it they resonate? What resonates with them? What are the images and the contributions and the legacies and the songs and our poets? We have there's so much a rich tapestry in our community that if you plan and you prepare, it will only make us that much richer. You see, for me, diversity is now to imply a difference. Diversity is about expanding our minds and enriching our lives. So with just a little bit of planning and preparing, we can bring diversity so that our hearts and minds will be expanded and our lives will definitely be richer through this approach. What about that A? Well, the A for me is that as your actions, as you look at your lesson plans, as you look at having family circles, as you look at connecting, doing home visits, things like this, you're creating legacies. And legacies will outlive us. Who doesn't remember a teacher that inspired you just by raising your hand? So that we, each of us, our legacy is one of two. We will be known as a gatekeeper, or we will be known as a dream maker. So I think that we have a 50-50 chance of being known years later, and many of you who have been teaching for a while know what that means when they find you at Walmart, when they invite you to their wedding, when they name a child after you, that you were in fact a dream maker. So we'll continue with the L. Do you lead with courage when perhaps the sentiment around the world is a divided one? Do you have the spirit and ganas, as they say back in my community, to say all children matter? All kids want to be looked upon equally and treated with the same dignity and respect. There is this opportunity that I had in Michigan when a teacher innocently said to me, "Oh, Miss Consuelo, I don't know why Latino children have so many names. I told them they could only pick one." And I looked at this teacher with grace and I said, "Please help me understand." I still had to lead with courage and say, and ask this teacher, "So what is your name?" And she said, "Mary Elizabeth." I said, "Can you imagine what that would be like if I asked you to pick one?" And she responded saying, "Oh, I couldn't. I have both names of my grandmothers." In that moment, she also had the courage to accept her bias, to accept that she perhaps, as the leader of her classroom, needed to learn something through a different lens. So that is how we all can be courageous to look and see where we need to expand and grow, because we all have these intrinsic biases and we all can give ourselves the lead to be courageous. The I, for me, it's about innovation and inspiration. You have there in your classroom geniuses, scholars. You have parents that have a PhD in life. Bring them into your classroom. Make this a living lab of cuentos and dichos and so much richness. I remember a viejito that was brought in by the superintendent. He was known in the community as the curandero. I have a dear friend of mine, I think is with us, Dr. Alejandro. And the curandero is like the shaman, you know? And so this superintendent said to this curandero, this healer, "Come and help my science department to learn all of the composition and chemicals of all the plantas, all the plants." And you can imagine the chemistry department, the science department, bringing this 80-year-old curandero, but they were innovative and they were inspired. And the next thing you know, the kids were all engaged. So my challenge to you today, make this classroom a living, organic place where love and learning can take place at the same time. What's the team mean for us? Well, it's going to take all of us, you know, and so as teachers coming from many different backgrounds, experiences, look across the hallway. One of my favorite words as a leader is that ser vulnerable es ser honorable. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's all right that as a young teacher, if you're a young teacher listening to this humble message, perfection is years down the road. Be yourself, be okay, and ask of your mentor, principal, someone else along your life to say, "You know what, I'm scared." Can you imagine me at 22 commanding? My first unit were 68 men, 68 machos. And I was 22, not even 5 foot. I don't think I've grown since then, maybe down. And I was just as scared as you were about what am I gonna do? But you know what? I relied on that sergeant that was between the men and myself. And I learned that he had been to Vietnam 3 times, 47 years old, 27 years doing his job. And I had to be vulnerable because that was the honorable thing to do. So remember, you're not alone. You have great leaders like Patricia Trejo. They're at the county, sharing their wisdom. You have all of these young voices around you that can also add to your journey. So what about the T? The O. Well, the O for me is about where I'm gonna stay but I'll finish and then I'll come back. To observe with a different lens. And that's going to be where I'm going to focus, but I want to share S real quick and then I'll come back to S. Stay humble and serve with a big heart. If you as an educator recognize these two great characteristics of leadership, the children will not be willing to learn. They will follow you anywhere. They'll even try to fail so they can have you again. They will tell their parents how kind and patient you are. So this is your legacy, to live by staying humble and serving with a big heart. All the best contents and buildings and pedagogy, which my scholar hermana will address, Doctora Flores, all of those are important equally. But the one metric on student success is the one that no one can ever measure. And that is what is in your heart. So I want to come back as I close in these last few minutes with the O. There is my mommy and my papi. They're not wearing Gucci Pucci or they don't never been to the White House or anything of that. Their daughter did, but it's because I stand on their shoulders. I am the benefactor of a mother who was a maid, who cleaned toilets, but she made them sparkle. I am the benefactor of a viejo, an old man like the one you see, who had a PhD in life, who loved America, who believed that as an immigrant, he inculcated in our hearts, nos inculcó, that this was our country. If we could not give to it, we were to never take from it. They taught us about loyalty, duty, honor, and country. And they said because they could never master the English language, that the only flag they would ever accept is because one of us or all of us chose to give our life to our nation. Of my 10 brothers and sisters, 8 of us are veterans. So look at the children that are in your classroom through that lens. Will they be the next president? Will they find the next cure? Do we look beyond what they're wearing, how they smell, the accent? It is in each and every one of us to then expand our window by which we see the children. For example, my parents had this vision, and that vision was so much greater than themselves. In the early 1940s, they left my barrio in Laredo, and they made it all the way up to Sterling, Illinois. And, you know, there wasn't fair housing then and things of that nature, so they were left to live in a boxcar like the one you see on this slide. Well, it's not about that you can have pity but rather empathy. That is the real story of this lens. Where is your empathy? For example, my mother saw that this 4 walls of steel were to be her home. And they taught us early on that anyone can build a house. It takes familia to strengthen a home. And so when you do your home visit, what will be your thoughts when you see where our children perhaps are starting from? What will you think? What will be your judgments? In the case of my mother and my father, one early morning, my mother said to my papi, Pedro, hoy voy a poner cortinas. A ver cómo le haces. Today I'm gonna set up curtains. You figure out how I get that done. And you know, my dad was kind of surprised and taken back because there were no windows. But he went into the steel mill and he said to this welder, Oiga, mi vieja quiere poner cortinas, meaning my darling wife wants to put up curtains. And the welder said, Castillo, what's wrong with you? You live in a boxcar. There are no windows. He said, okay, you want to tell my wife? And he said, never mind, we better fix it because your wife must know something we don't know. And that is so true. What was her lens? What did it look like? Well, that night as they prayed together, my father asked my mother, oye vieja, ¿por qué quieres cortinas? Why do you want curtains? And my mother answered in her simple way, Pedro, this is where you brought me. This is where I must make a home. But I will tell you this much. I see windows where there are none because I see hope. It is in my heart. I see that in America, my children must also see a window beyond these steel walls. So in your classroom, what do you see? What is your lens telling you? So that as I begin to close this humble story, I go to this nopal. What about the nopal? Well, remember, people would come to visit. And in that moment, I saw my father take this thorn, superfood now, peel it, cut it. My mother would take the nopals. She would add flour and harina. And the next thing you know, she would add a few eggs from the gallinero, from the chicken coop in the back. And now we had nopales con huevo, and the frijoles, and the tortillas that came from her tender, arthritic-looking hands. And there, whoever came was welcomed with abrazos. Just like I hope you will welcome all the children with the abrazo, with a hug, and with a love that no one will ever measure. So do you see beyond these thorns? Do you see that a cactus blossoms? That you and the way you teach will bear fruit so beautiful. And if you know the cactus, it blooms in many different colors. It is the mystery of a teacher to open up that nopal, to give it water. It doesn't need much, and it will be a fruit-bearing plant. And if you use the fruit, la pera, well, I heard that at happy hour, they make margaritas out of this. I'm not sure about all that, but I know that growing up, I love to eat that prickly pear. And I love the idea of my mother making those nopalitos to feed her family. So through this nopalitos story, do you see beyond the thorns? Do you see our children? Do you hear them? But most of all, do you feel them? Because they want to learn and they're waiting for you to give them the gift that will forever set them free. As my father would say, yo seré libre, hija, pero mientras no esté educado, seguiré enjaulado. I may be free in America, but until you are educated, it is only then that you will be free at last. So please, teach all our children so that you can live a legacy of no longer ever being called the gatekeeper, but honorably called the dream maker. Muchísimas gracias.
Does anybody else want tissues? Spirit fingers. Wow. Beautiful, Consuelo. Muchas gracias. We definitely want to hear your thoughts and really make sure that we maximize the experience for you today. And we want to have this conversation and be very interactive. And so to help us do that, because we want to hear from you and to see, what are your thoughts as far as looking past those thorns on el nopalito. So to help us do that, we have with us our partner in education who has graciously donated so much of their personal time and efforts, a National Business Development Manager, Heidi Baker, with her team that will help us to have that interactive discussion this morning and this afternoon.
Gracias, Heidi.
So happy to be here today. Thank you so much, Patricia, for a wonderful opportunity. And Consuelo, beautiful stories. Thank you for the inspiration. They'll be in my heart forever. I'm going to listen to the recording about 10 times and share it with 1 million people. Thank you so much.
Okay.
We're going to participate in a thought exchange. We're going to take about 4 minutes. There's a timer right here. And so what you're going to do is hold your camera. If you have an iPhone, you can hold up your camera to the QR code and it'll just pull up the exchange right away. If you have an Android, you want to go ahead and type in tejoin.com and type in that code right there. The Thought Exchange is a crowdsourcing platform that allows everybody to share their thoughts. You'll also rate the thoughts of others. So as you're sharing, you're going to click the star button and you're going to start seeing all the other participants' thoughts. Rate their thought 1 to 5, how it resonates with you. 1 meaning less resonate and 5 meaning more. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. And then my colleague Shannon will continue on with the instructions as we move on. So with that, the question is, what are your thoughts and questions for Consuelo Castillo Kickbusch and her beautiful presentation today?
Our first thought is we need to be more thoughtful about our curriculum and be mindful that kids want to be loved and accepted just as they are. Build educational opportunity on a strong foundation of self-worth and agency. Consuelo, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Well, one of the things that I admire about our educational leaders is start with your own story. If you're willing to tell the whole story, then that also validates your own self-worth and agency. And it breaks down the walls of difference.
Okay, let's look at the next thought. Consuelo, you shared so poetically representing the rich history of storytelling that is valued in so many of our students' cultures. We can leverage storytelling as a means to helping our students blossom. How can we do that?
Well, you know, growing up, one of my greatest fears was how did you spend your summer essay. It was terrifying to me because I didn't have a vacation, a beautiful story. I went to work with my mother. I went to clean toilets. And I thought the students will laugh at me. I didn't know that everybody else was also. So change the title, change it to what is one of your stories of growing up instead of how did you spend your summer as if an inferred or implied privileged perspective, but rather use, like I said, humility.
I'm reminded of the power and potential of an individual's story to be included as part of the fabric of humanity. Some stories remain invisible and other stories are watched and scrutinized. Everyone deserves a chance to tell their story and have it matter.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of a beautiful story that took place in Knott County, Kentucky. I was to speak to an all Anglo-American group of children from the hollers of Kentucky. And I had my own bias. What could I say to these children that would resonate? They didn't look like me. I didn't know about the hollers. But in telling my story, they began to tell me their stories. And I quickly want to add that one of the young men came up to me and he said, "Ma'am, I am somebody after I heard you speak. I want to hug you, but I can't because my zipper is broken." And so I said, "Baby, come on stage and I'll hold your pants and I'll hug you because you are somebody." That lesson was for me, not just for that young man. And what this wonderful person who wrote these words is so resonating. Everyone has a story. I will never look at Knott County, Kentucky through a different lens.
That's exactly right. And everyone's story does matter. Let's see the next thought. How have you overcome the moments of great challenge in your own leadership journey when it felt like people were trying to limit your impact?
Well, that's still going on in my life. You know, I never really know if it's because I'm a woman or a woman of color. So it doesn't have a beginning, nor do I think it'll ever have an end. So what do? I hold on to these truths to be my truths. And one is to never negotiate my ethics. And I rather lose a contract, a job, or whatever people may think, but my ethics must be what I go with at the end of my day. Two is my spirituality. When I don't have or think that someone else can step in to guide me or help me, I just get on my knees and I remind myself that I've come so far so that I'm not asking for permission. I'm simply at the table taking my place that my parents and others have sacrificed for me. So just hold on to your truth. Hold on to your ethics as your moral compass will guide you. And you will find that you will still get to that other side.
Very nice. Let's see the next one. Our students all belong to have equal opportunities for all.
Well, that says it all. But the opportunity then is, do we see them through their lens, not through ours?
I'm inspired by your parents' story, so rich with emotion and hope. I want to inspire others to see beyond the thorns. I will share your story for sure.
Oh, that's so kind. Well, I challenge you. You're in Florida. There's a cactus or two somewhere, I think. We'll go bring that cactus in and then start by saying, once, I heard this old abuela tell this story, and then let the children add their imagination and add what they consider to be hope. Thank you for the kind comments. I hope that you'll visit us and bring us to your communities, and whatever we can do to serve, we'll do it with a servant's heart. Thank you.
The importance of seeing windows as opportunities, we owe it to our students.
One of the things that I love to do with students when we work with them one-on-one is we get them a blank t-shirt. And I have a young millennial here next to me, Pup, the t-shirt exercise we do. Mm-hmm. And I give them the t-shirt to go home and put what they see. And on the other side of the shirt, what they would want to change. And then we string them all in the classroom and we create a gallery. And it's up to then all of us to interpret what their windows are saying. I find that to be a great teaching tool of sensitizing and creating empathy for all of us to see through their windows.
We are all, in a way, like the nopalito, often underappreciated and misunderstood. Hispanics must lock arms to gain strength from one another in a current climate where they may be dismissed. Basta ya.
I know that's my kindred spirit, whoever you are, así es. And so I say to us, hermanos, hermanas, it's not about a hierarchy among Latinos. It's not about who got here first and who got here. None of that talk is only toxic. It divides us, it marginalizes us. And then we face the general population that also looks at us perhaps through that deficit mindset. So I agree with you, my kindred spirit. We must get away from deficit thinking and love and share and be honored to be with all of us in the same room. Somos familia.
Eso sí. Next one. In this time of uncertainty, it's so important to remember our true purpose. Our children depend on us. Thank you for this touching reminder.
Pues gracias. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this gathering. Patricia, I love you. I admire you. I respect you highly. And I know the other speakers that are in the lineup and the students everyone has value. And now the opportunity for us through looking at another lens is how are you going to create your legacy in this time of uncertainty? We're doing distance learning. Families have lost work. Some of us have know of lost loved ones, but it's okay. And so, yes, our children need to be given a voice. We need to allow them to journal, to cry, to experience all of those emotions. And if a teacher can create that as a reflective time, then the learning will take its place in its due course. But to honor and to serve is to include the voices of all. I'll end by saying this: we are to be one nation. If we are to be indivisible, then stop looking at difference as a deficit, but rather as a legacy, so that the social justice will come to all, and the liberty is the gift we give ourselves by living in this great nation. I proudly served for 20 years, and some of my family didn't come back the same. Let it not be in vain that we go forward and we fight another war, this virus, for it does not discriminate. But let us win, and let us remind ourselves that this too shall pass, so the children can take it from there into the future.
Consuelo, you are such an inspiration, and we are so grateful that you took the time to be here with us. And, you know, for the audience that you may not be aware, I mean, she graciously donated her time to be able to spend some time with our students this afternoon, this morning, and with you all. And that just speaks volumes to the work that she does, and she does serve humbly. So we're so grateful and thankful that you were here with us. And, you know, as you had highlighted so beautifully, it is important that we continue to really think about the social emotional aspect of our kids. Yes, there's the academic, you know, aspect that's very, very important, but without really understanding that social emotional, because as you all are aware, a lot of our students are coming from so many different, you know, countries and struggles and challenges, immigrating, migrating, there's different cultural and linguistic variations, that it's important that we understand each and every child holistically. And then once we've got that foundation established and strengthened, then we can build upon when it comes to the academic. So thank you, Consuelo, for really helping us to highlight that message this morning, this afternoon. And I say this morning, this afternoon, because as you all know, we've got a little over 80 people with us all over the nation, and some are joining us in the morning and some are here this afternoon. So we're gonna go ahead. It's a beautiful moment to transition right into our students, because again, it is about them and it's for them, and we wanna hear from them. We did solicit some feedback from them, and we wanted to know candidly what they value most about learning Hispanic Latino history in their classes and how it impacted them. So to help us facilitate that, we have Mr. Jameson Stell, who works in our multicultural department here in the School District of Palm Beach County. So Mr. Stell, thank you for being here with us. I hear you have a great panel with us, great amazing students with us today.
We do. We get to hear from the real stars of the show now. So as Patricia said, I'm Jameson Stell, and I had the honor of teaching these students as part of the Latinos in Action program at Forest Hill High School in West Palm Beach, Florida. And so without further ado, I want to showcase these brilliant students who really are blossoming the way that Consuelo so beautifully articulated to us. So I'm going to ask muchachos, if you'll introduce yourselves. We'll start with Giselle. If you'll say your name, your grade, tell us about your heritage, and a little bit about what your plans might be after you finish high school. So Giselle, go ahead and take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Giselle Perez. I'm currently in 11th grade as an LA student and Forest Hill student. My family and I are Guatemalan, and my plans after high school is joining the Marines, or my second option would be to attend a university for interior design.
Hey everybody, my name is Elisa Serna. I'm from Honduras. I came here 6 years ago with my mom and my little brother. Well, I'm currently in 11th grade, and my plans after high school, I want to join the National Guard for 4 years. And after that, I want to join FAU in Boca Raton, and I want to become a lawyer.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Elisa Jesus. I'm currently in 9th grade, and my heritage is Dominican. I was blessed to be born there, and what I want to do after high school is join FAU to study CSI.
Very good. Thank you, Yelis. And Isai?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Isai Sanchez. I'm currently in 10th grade. I am an LIE student at Forest Hill High School. My parents are from Guatemala, and after I graduate from high school, I want to start my own charity or join a trade to help kids with medical condition or people in need. And also, I'm working on my book.
Awesome. Thank you, Isai. And last but not least, Josue. Are you there, Josue?
Yes. Hi everyone, my name is Josue Vega. I come from from Forest Hill High School, from the Latinos in Action program. I'm on 9th grade. I'm from Cuba, and when I graduate, I don't even know what I want to do, but I'm gonna figure it out in the future.
All right. So we're gonna pull up the results from the thought exchange and kind of talk through a little bit of what the students have responded here and hear from these students, how they kind of align with their own experiences. So our top result here, we look on the screen, is what I value the most from learning about Hispanic or Latino history is the way we've overcome many obstacles and succeed on defying the odds. So on this panel, we have a pretty rich diversity of cultures and countries represented. As you all heard, we have Guatemala, Honduras, República Dominicana, y Cuba. So I want to just pitch this to you, students, whoever wants to jump in here. Just kind of tell us a little bit about how you've seen the history and the cultures of your countries represented in your own experience. Do you feel like that they've been valued, or are those things that have been emphasized? Let's talk a little bit about what you've experienced around this.
I would like to go first. Well, in my point of view, I haven't really noticed that my country has been valued of its culture and traditions in school-wise. I've noticed that there are other countries that are more prioritized or have more information back in history that's related to the United States. And I feel that there are countries, including mine, that haven't been supported or viewed as a priority. And yeah, that's what I just wanted to say.
Giselle, what country is that?
Guatemala.
Anyone else, students, or we want to move on to another thought here?
I believe that not only Latinos get not get represented enough, but other cultures too. And I feel like it's not fair, but yeah, I just wanted to say that. Sorry.
So this thought, I'd like to see how Latinos have different cultures and backgrounds, and that we can relate to many things despite differences. So students, can you talk about that a little bit? Why do you think it's valuable to learn about other Hispanic or Latino cultures, and why is that something that's worthwhile or important to you?
It's important to learn different cultures and traditions from many other countries, because not only does it benefit you, but it makes you a better person, and you also get to know many more languages, which how it benefits you is because it gives you more job options. And not just that, you're able to understand the many different cultures of other students. For example, there may be a new transfer student from, let's say, Chile or Venezuela, and then they don't have any companions or who they are able to relate with. And if you have, if you research more cultures about them and just on your own, figuring it out, that student will feel more comfortable, and they'll value the person because they had their own time to research more stuff about their country. And it's a very nice experience where people are able to get together, even though you're from different countries or from different race. It's a very nice view and like a very nice feeling as a family, even though we're from different blood or different race, but as a family coming together, it's a very nice feeling.
I feel like learning different kind of cultures benefits us, because as we grow up, we come from our cultures, and as we get teenager, we can learn different kind of culture, tradition, and different kind of food, and have a big connection with all Latinos all around the world. Also travel around and having friends around, connection, and that's one of the main important about Latino in Action, is to be a family and to get to know each other.
Yo pienso que es importante de que todos los latinos podamos interactuar juntos, porque la academia no se llama Honduras en Acción, no se llama Guatemala en Acción, es Latinos en Acción. So, es un salón. En mi clase, cuando yo estaba en First Hill, mi maestra Mr. Sell, éramos un salón de todos los países, y no todos éramos hispanos, algunos hablaban solo inglés, otros hablaban solo español. Todos eran tan shy que cada quien tenía su grupo, y Mr. Sell tenía una actividad que siempre nos cambiaba de asientos para poder interactuar con otros estudiantes de diferentes países. Por ejemplo, en mi caso, yo soy de Honduras, no soy una persona que me llevo solo con otros países, me gusta relacionarme con las demás personas de otros países como Cuba, Colombia, México, porque al final todos somos latinos y tenemos algo igual que compartir. Y es como tú quieres ser alguien en la vida, es mejor saber algo de todos los lugares, que eso te vaya muy lejos al éxito, que solo saber algo de tu país. Eso te hace tener más knowledge y te lleva más allá en la vida, porque vas a tener una persona con muchos thoughts y vas a ser una persona abierta para la comunidad.
Gracias, Elisa. Anyone else want to share on this one?
So I think we as humans, we have to like be evolving every single time. We have to learn about how other people work and how other people have born their countries, because we need to understand each other. And when we can't say like I understand you completely if we don't know how the person is feeling and where that person came from. We have to understand where they came from, how their culture is, and we have to like have more knowledge.
Thank you, Josue. A shameless plug. We, if you'd like to hear more from these students, we have a breakout session, and you're welcome to join for that. They're going to be sharing on a whole host of issues, sort of related to what we're talking about here, but related to our conference theme. I think we have titled that Latino Studies in Action, and really the heart of the statute here or of this event is moving the statute just from representation to transformation. And that's what we're going to be talking about with them in that breakout session. So I encourage you all, if you'd like to hear more from them, to join us for that breakout session as well. So we'll go to one last thought here and hear from our students before we move forward. It helps other people learn about Latinos history, and it's really important to let others know that Latinos had bad times back then. So muchachos, students, I'm curious if you've had teachers, maybe outside of a history class or a Spanish class, if you've had teachers who have really shown an interest in your cultures and your countries and their histories, have given you a chance maybe to research those or to showcase what you know about them to your classmates, so that other people could learn about those histories and learn more about your cultures. Have you had that experience? Did other teachers and other classes give you that opportunity?
Well, right now, I have a teacher which is Ace General Paper, and he had the idea to do a little project to know more history about Cuba, and he made us watch a documentary about Cuba and about its events that happened that doesn't even talk about in the history books. So he wanted us to have, like as Josue said, to have more knowledge about the different events that happened and how it impacted the Cubans' life and the USA and how it like happened. So like each day we would go, he would talk about Cuba and he would like let us know about what was happening. Not just that, he would also make us watch CNN on how things were affecting internationally, not just here in the United States.
In my case, it wasn't like that. None of the teachers that I could remember were interested, and besides outside of history, none of them. And it's really sad because I believe that everyone should be encouraged to talk about their culture and where they were raised and the country they were from. And it's really, honestly, it's really sad that some people just can't or simply not interested enough because they just don't know about it.
For me, it was like more than an assignment. It was like talking to the teacher. He was like, "Yo, cause he went to Cuba. He was like, "Yo, I love Cuba. It's like America, but like a time machine. Like going back and seeing all those old cars, like that people talking outside, talking good about our country was like happy to me."
I would like to put out a suggestion of how, relating to the other few questions back about how we can come together to get to know more cultures and traditions. Me personally, I would love to have classes in school about the different cultures learning, because as you can tell in the different curriculum, there are like a Spanish classes or French classes. And my suggestion would be having a class where we're able to learn different cultures, like not just about Cuba or just about Mexico, but the different cultures in different countries that have, and then just combining it together, it would like bring out more knowledge and more the community will be more larger as a family. And like with that class, you're able to compare and contrast, having similarities and differences, and just talking about the different events and like history that's been happening.
So this one says places a strong value on family. It's important because families are the one that we're always going to be there no matter what. So students, can you talk about your experience with feeling like you have a family, a community that you belong to as Latino students from various countries, different cultures coming together as one, as a family?
I have had the opportunity to experience that, because before joining Latinos in Action, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know myself, and I was a very shy and social person, and I wouldn't talk much about my country as much as I do now. And ever since I walked into Forest Hill High School for the first time when it was a freshman invasion, that was the day that I met Mr. Stout and Mrs. Vargas for the first time, and they were introducing Latinos in Action. And I still remember that I walked in with a friend, and when I saw the video about Latinos in Action, what it was about, I was very happy and like very emotional, because not only is it a class where you're able to get together with different people from the country, but you're acting more as family than just regular friends. And ever since I joined Latinos in Action, it has impacted my life. And even though we're not from the same blood or from the same country, I still consider them as family, and who support me no matter what, and who I support as well. And we're all able to get together, and it has impacted my life and my social life as well. And I'm very grateful for that.
Okay, so when I got here first, it was really complicated to me and sad at the same time, because here was only me and my mom, and the rest of my family were there, all back there in Brazil, and I didn't have any friends, like just me and my mom. And then when I first went to my school, West Boca, I thought I would like be completely lost on the school, and I thought that like I wouldn't be able to make friends because of my English, stuff like that, because I couldn't say anything in English. So when I first met Miss Claudia and Miss Singer from West Boca, they helped me a lot at the beginning when I was first trying to learn English. They would help me on the class. They would go on the class with me and translate if I would need help with anything. They would always be there for me, and I'm so grateful for their lives. And for here in the US, have so many opportunities to the Latinos and Hispanic students to have the opportunity to come here and make the difference.
I feel like family is the most important thing in our life, because I actually got in LI this year, and as me as a teenager, I don't have a mom or a dad, so basically I felt like left out because I didn't know, I couldn't express my culture because I knew that I was by myself. But as I joined LA this year, I felt that LA is not only like doing class, but as also you can go out and hang out with friends, and that's defined LA, and it also defines family, because we have their back and, you know, supporting them and being motivated.
How brave of all of you.
Yeah.
Mira, vamos a darle spirit fingers de nuevo, spirit fingers. That's amazing. And Mira, and give yourselves a pat on the shoulder. It takes you to be brave to be here and share your candid thoughts. And we're so happy that you were able to do that. I know some of you couldn't even speak English either. And so you've blossomed and beautifully are able to articulate. So I'm so proud of each and every single one of you. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon and really sharing your personal journeys and your stories and your struggles and your challenges and how you've overcome them and how now you feel a sense of belonging through your personal experience with the Latinos in Action program. And we are grateful also that we do have Dr. Jose Enriquez here with us joining this conversation. So I'm sure he's beaming with a smile to hear these stories. We're very, very grateful to all of you being here. Please continue to make a difference. You know, Maria, you said it, you know, beautifully. You're right. All of you are making a difference and you are a future, and we are confident that you will continue to do that. So now we're going to give everybody an opportunity to tweet and share why culture matters and tag Palm Beach County School District and tag Latino African. And while you are tweeting, we're going to have Cesar Gallegos continue to play a little bit for us in the background. Muchas gracias, Cesar. Amazing, very talented. Thank you, Cesar, for being here with us. Now we're going to go ahead and share with you some of the responses that we were able to solicit from some of our teachers here in the School District of Palm Beach County as it related to some of the challenges perhaps that they may be having that may prevent them from infusing Hispanic Latino history into their subject area. They also had the opportunity to highlight that if that wasn't the case, then what exactly was working for them. So we're going to transition into that and pull up some of those responses that we'll go through very quickly. And then we'll have Dr. Barbara Flores help us with highlighting some of those. So the first thought here, it says staff members need to understand the systematic discrimination embedded within organizations, including schools. Well-intentioned adults cause harm because they do it, recognize the inequities, and believe they and the system is colorblind. A challenge would be the lack of sufficient textbooks, resources, and materials with Hispanic Latino history. This is important because our Hispanic Latino students need to see themselves daily in our curriculum and instruction. Staff training on equity education is essential. It should include understanding the history and culture of group members and a willingness to self-integrate. Training would put the onus on the collective to address the inequities in the system so that the heavy lifting is not on the backs of the marginalized. Lack of information could be an issue. Since this is a new class for me, I had to learn a lot more information, which was enjoyable. More knowledge, more flexibility. I would like to see more resources in our textbook, teacher page. Not enough Latino history infused in all subject matters. Important because students need to learn about Latino history through all subject areas, not just during Hispanic Heritage Month. Teachers do not have enough planning time and professional development time to learn and prepare themselves to infuse Latino history into subject area. It is important to allow educators time to learn and time to plan lessons infused with Latino history. High school textbook for this class is not very student friendly. The textbook is very great in detail for me as a teacher. However, for a student, it is boring and had to understand many of the reading level. And let's go to one more. I work as a dean, so my context is different. My concern is school segments, students into programs, ESC and ELL, etc. Students are part of groups and not the whole. The schools work when they are inclusive. All staff members should feel bonded and responsible for all students. Otherwise, we create a school culture of others. So Dr. Barbara Flores is here with us, joining this afternoon. She is a Latina scholar, activist, and leader, a previous superintendent, a children's literature writer, international expert in biliteracy development, a creator, and a co-author of the first original Spanish level book series in the United States called Piñata and Más Piñata. She is the past president for the National Association for Bilingual Education, and she is the current school board member for the San Bernardino City Unified School District. So spirit fingers for Dr. Barbara Flores. What are your thoughts, Señora, regarding what you just saw?
Students que tocaron mi corazón. When I first started teaching, I was 22, and I had students like you from all over, immigrants, and I saw 187 students a day, and they gave me all the kids that nobody wanted, and they even told me that. These kids don't speak English, these kids don't know how to read, blah, 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 blah. Well, I went back to the high school that I taught in, and I was appalled at what they told me. And you should know that at age 6, I knew that I was going to be a teacher. Age 6. I spoke Spanish, like Consuelo said. You inspired me with your speaking, and also Consuelo. And I used to be punished for speaking Spanish. We were hit with rulers on our hands, pinched, and we used to wear braids, and they would pull our hair. My grandma used to take care of me, and I would go and tell her, and como me daba coraje, and she would say, no te dejes, don't take it. Then I would go tell my mom, and my mom would say, aguántate, take it. And I'd go, I'm following my grandma. I'm not gonna take it. And it used to make me so angry at how I didn't have the words. I didn't have the words that they were discriminating against me. I just knew that I did not like it, right? And when you guys talk about family, I had my identity intact because of my family. I have 10 aunts and uncles on my mother's side, 10 aunts and uncles on my father's side. I have 45 cousins on my father's side and 38 cousins on my mother's side. So when you talk about familia, we are familia. And I grew up with all my cousins, all my tios and tias, my tios, my tias, my grandparents. And we were discriminated against. But the elders would say, you are a good person. Like Consuelo said, tú eres una persona noble. Tú eres una persona que quiere a toda la gente. Tú tienes familia, and so I just want to share with you that the reason I am a teacher of teachers is because of my kids. I was getting my master's, and this professor would yell at me, Flores, you need to go get your doctorate. And I go, I don't even know what a doctorate is. I had no idea what a doctorate was. And he says, well, you need to teach teachers, because you're such a good teacher. So I went back to my kids, and I told them, my high school kids, and they said, Miss, does that mean that you're going to teach teachers to teach kids like you teach us? I said, yeah. You need to go. We need teachers that care. We need teachers that believe in us. So you need to go and teach all those teachers. And so I just finished my career of more than 40 years as educator. I quote retired, but I'm not really retired. And I am very thankful to you, Patricia, for inviting me, and for you, Consuelo, for recommending me to come today. And I'm an academic. I'm a scholar. The reason I did have my doctorate, I got it in 1980. So how many years is that? I've had it for 40 years, okay. So it seems like yesterday. And I had kids, my high school kids couldn't read. And I was so dumbfounded by that. And I would ask them, how come you can't read? And says, my teacher says I don't know how to read. My teacher says this, my teacher. And I said, are you kidding me? I'm going to teach you how to read. And so I became expert in literacy and biliteracy. And I went and I got my doctorate with the top people in the world at the University of Arizona. And I just, you know, and I've worked with teachers, real kids for all these years because I wanted to be side by side with them. And now I'm going to speak to the teachers. We are the second parent of our kids. We are the ones, se dice en español, somos encargados, right? It is our responsibility to create that family within our classrooms. It is so important. And we need to value, and I had to decide what I had to do. You know, I'm a Vygotskian. I've investigated how we organize teaching and learning, and Vygotsky resonates. There's so many other theoretical frameworks, but we as teachers have to know why. Why is it that we have to organize teaching and learning? And what are the theoretical frameworks that will help us? And just like all the teachers have said, you know, about materials, time for professional development, and etc. You're going to note that I'm highly intuitive, and you're going to see that that's embedded in my PowerPoint. So I'm going to begin real quickly. So I titled this Valuing and Integrating Culturally Relevant Pedagogy, Engaging Students, and I decided to just pick some pedagogy, and I'm going to go through it really, really quickly, but I'm going to spend a lot of time on the Vygotskian perspective because he believed in social cultural theory of teaching and learning. So and we as, you know, we value Vygotsky's social cultural theory because he held that culture, language, and schooling are critical to the development of a human person. And before I go on to the next slide, I wanted to share that my husband, Dr. Esteban Diaz, and I are created this PowerPoint. We've been working together since actually 1987. And so on this, and, you know, trying to work with teachers, actually working with teachers so that we can, you know, facilitate success. So let's go to the next one, please. Next slide. Culture is important because a person is a social cultural construction. As the children said, and as you noted from Consuelo's inspiring storytelling, we are who we meet. We are who we meet. Only through others do we become ourselves. And any function in children's cultural development appears twice or in two planes. And this is so important to know that we are social. We are social human beings, and everybody's culture counts. Next. So knowledge appears, our Vygotsky's law of cultural development includes that first it appears on a social plane and then on a psychological plane. First, it appears between people as an interpsychological category, and then within, which is intra, so within and between. Next. And most importantly, he saw mind as a social construction. Social relationships are key to intellectual and personal development of a person. Parents, peers, and teachers play a role in individual development. So when we get the kids, we are now responsible for developing that person's, you know, being, who that person's going to be. And if you go to the next one, and this is what Vygotsky said, go to the next slide, go to the next one. Please go to the next slide. That that we do this through language. Language is important. Language is first used in social interaction, but gradually is internalized. And at that point, social language, speech, right, and use becomes thought. That's a really important point, that the language that we use in our social interaction, whatever the social interaction is, becomes internalized. That becomes thought. That becomes our feelings. That becomes who we become. So it is so critical that we as teachers understand that, because it is involving the cognitive and personal development of every student, of every kid that we teach. Go to the next one. And where and how do language and culture come together? They come together in the zone of proximal development. This is where children appropriate or make their own, internalize the social construction of knowledge and language in the zones of proximal development. Next, and what does that mean? What is the zone? Well, it's the distance between where the child is and where we want the child to go, to the potential. And we, as teachers, are so key in how we organize that, how we organize teaching and learning. And what's important is that we need to value every student, except where they are developmentally, because it's up to us to organize the teaching to the potential. But how do we go to the potential? I'll talk about mediation a little bit further along, but go to the next slide. The next slide. And we, in our work for the, no, go back. In our work, go back to the slide before, please. There's a caveat that we want to make visible to all of you, that it's not only can we organize positive zones, but we can also organize zones that are negative. And negative zones of proximal development are those that are not organized to mediate, a child's potential or a person's potential. We as teachers sometimes actually unknowingly organize a negative zone. And what negative zones do is create failure. And we don't even know that we're doing it. And so we have to remember that we have to interrogate and name and transform, how we're creating negative zones. It could be from attitudes, deficit attitudes that we have. It can be the mandated curriculum that they're giving us that doesn't make sense. Like one teacher said, the book is boring, it doesn't make sense. Well, using that book is to us a negative zone because it doesn't reach the kids. We have to choose content that will be realistic, authentic, and so forth. Okay, next slide, please. And why is school important? I'm only going to go to the last statement. In school, teachers, rather than parents, continue the development of the child. We are the ones. We are the second parents. We are the ones that are responsible for caring and teaching our kids and viewing them as our own. Next slide, please. And this is where schooling or education for Vygotsky meant, and it speaks to what the kids were saying and what Consuelo was saying. Vospitania, upbringing, nurturing, enculturation, cultivating a human person. That's the care, the love, the heart, showing our kids that we love and care for them and that we view them as, authentic human beings, that they are not objects, they are real people, and they have feelings, they have their own creativity, their own dreams, like the kids said. And the other word is obachenia, teaching, learning. Vygotsky did not separate teaching, learning like we do in Western, how we were taught. This is how kids learn, this is how you're going to teach, and never putting them together. Well, no, we have to look at teaching and learning together. How am I organizing that zone of proximal development? How am I, facilitating the learning deliberately? How am I going to include culture, history? You'll see later what we're talking about, but how every single lesson is a social interaction. If it's true that knowledge is socially constructed through social interaction and then internalized, how do we do that? I have to be mindful as a teacher. What am I talking about? How do I engage my kids? So it's really, really key, teaching, learning. Next slide, please. And that leads us to spontaneous and scientific concepts. School is where the child's everyday knowledge becomes academic knowledge. We value children's everyday knowledge, students' everyday knowledge. It is valuable. And that's the bridge. We are the bridge to saying they know stuff already. And now we're going to go and bridge it to the academic knowledge. And everyday knowledge becomes scientific schooled concepts. Everyday concepts. And it is our role as teachers to make that bridge. Next, please. So spontaneous concepts were called everyday, right, by Vygotsky, and they emerged from the child's or the student's own reflections on immediate everyday experiences and interactions. Like the kids were saying from their different countries. Those everyday experiences that they had in their countries, they have every day in their families, with their friends, their dreams, their imagination. Those experiences should be valued. Okay, next, please. Next slide. And scientific schooled concepts is where we, how would you say, organize the knowledge and make it more dynamic. It's more there's more systematicity there. It's conscious, it's hierarchical. We organize it. And next, I'll show you in what later. And what he said was scientific concepts, go through downward through spontaneous concepts, and spontaneous concepts grow upward through scientific concepts. You'll see that in the next slide with the visual that I have that we created. So you see it going down and then the other one's coming up. And in school, that's what we want, scientific concepts, but also embedded in this context with culturally relevant pedagogy. Okay, next slide. So once acquired, scientific concepts transform, right? The everyday concepts, and give students the ability to represent and generalize their experiences in the natural and social sciences, as well as the humanities. And that's why instruction in scientific concepts plays a decisive role in the child's mental development, and how we can create geniuses. We can create geniuses. It's just up to us in how we organize the teaching learning. Next, please. And that is why we as teachers are so important to the future of our students and humankind. It is because they are social, cultural, social, historical. We are mediators of all humankind, of knowledge and values. Next, please. And how do we do it? When I said teach to the potential, it just doesn't happen magically. We have to mediate. And what does mediation mean? It means that an individual does not establish a relationship with the world, but that this relationship is mediated through the use of tools. And what are the tools? The main tool is language, whether it's oral or written. mathematical system, symbols, algebra, icons, mediated structures. I created that term, mediated structures. It's not like a graphic organizer or thinking maps. Mediated structures embed visually how all the scientific concepts with all the different aspects that go with what we're teaching. Also, what are the other tools? Infographics, music, art, etc. Next slide, please. So mediated structures facilitate acquisition, internalization, appropriation by students of school-based knowledge processes, values, and behavior. And next, please. And the power of mediated structures, is because their ability to develop scientific concepts. And you'll see that in the next examples that I give. Keep going. Next. And I just want to have everybody remember that language is thought. Language and social interaction, whatever we create collaboratively with our students, becomes thought. And it is a system for meaningful communication. It becomes thought is internalized through speech. Everyday social interactions uses language and eventually becomes thought. And so we have to really be mindful of what is it that we are engaging our kids in. If you think about it, oh my God, what is it that we do? I have to tell you a little story about my daughter. She's going to kindergarten, and I tell her, Natasha, you cannot use mommy's car words at school. And she says, I know, mommy. I won't use those. Of course, there were, real colorful words, right? And so she had learned those words, but I was teaching her that it was not appropriate to use them in kindergarten. So, okay, go to the next one in terms of mediational structures. Okay, now here are examples. Literature as cultural knowledge. We have all types of literature, fairy tales, folk tales, legends, myths, from all our different cultures that we could use. In my high school class, the kids wanted to learn the fairy tales, the common American fairy tales. And I go, you want to learn fairy tales? Yeah. And so we read Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and they wrote a screenplay of Goldilocks breaking and entering. and had a trial and so forth. And so they adapted that, right? We talked about oral traditions of our stories, and which is really important. What do stories tell us? Stories give us a moral, a way, way to remember. That's all we had before we had written language. We had storytelling. And they should exist in our lessons. And like the kids said, and Consuelo said, everybody has stories. We're storytellers. All of us are storytellers. Next, please. So I was working with teachers, and we created these mediated structures because we saw gender bias in our fairy tales. And so we created, we used literary analysis, and we created these mediated structures. So go to the next one so I can just share real quickly. So you see this, it says critical analysis of cultural gender stereotypes. Cinderella's sisters, Ursula, Little Mermaid, Cinderella, stepmother, witch from Snow. And then you have personality, physical features, voice. Are they rich or poor? Why are they mean? Are they sad or jealous? This is called a mediational structure. It's embedded with the academic language and categories of doing critical literary analysis. Go to the next one. And here's another one. Again, a matrix. Go to the next one. And you see here, analyzing female stereotypical roles, my culture, fairy tales, where you're doing comparative between the kids' cultures, wherever they're from, and the fairy tales. Next one, please. I also have them in Spanish, but I didn't put them in here. So the role of mediated structures facilitates the appropriation and internalization by students, school-based knowledge, processes, values, and behavior, and that is scientific concepts with depth and complexity. Go ahead. Next one. Here's another mediational structure, critical analysis of biographies. I have tons of these, by the way, that we've created that I would love to share with all of you and even create different ones. But here's a social political analysis of key people who lived lives resisting, surviving, and fighting against abuses of human rights. You know, their biographies, and we know that biographies are stories of real people written by someone else, and the depth and literary study of courageous people who took stands, you know, against social justice or injustice. Next one, please. So here you have three women, Anne Frank, Biddy Mason, Frida Kahlo, and biographical comparative matrix. What was their purpose? What was the motivation? What was suffering, endurance, lessons learned, how it relates to you? Name your suffering, why we read this. And so you see this matrix, and as they read the book, they had discussions, but they filled in this matrix, right? It was bigger for the kids. And so you had a Jewish woman, you had a Black woman, you had a Latina woman. When the kids were saying, let's compare cultures. Well, here you have three women that resisted social injustice. And so anyway, next one, please. Keep going. Here's another one that you could use. What was I thinking when I was reading this? What did I notice? What are the social and political implications? This is a mediated structure called three-part jotting. Next one, please. I'm sharing this for the teachers so they can see. When you're reading short story, okay, we have a literary element. Say we're setting theme. You go back into the text. What's the scene? And then we discuss what's the literary technique that the author used. Was it metaphor? Was it simile? You know, was it flashback, etc.? But this is after we've discussed the lessons learned from the story, like the story 11 by Sandra Cisneros. And I love to use short stories because we can, you know, talk about it in 50 minutes and go into it or, you know, continue. Next slide, please. So we say that we are teachers. Remember we said psychological tools? Well, we're a tool too. We are teachers as social cultural mediator. We are the mediator. We are the ones that organize lessons to create positive zones, to help students reach their optimal potential, which we call the positive zones, and places students at risk. And if we place, or we can place students at risk by wasting their time in lower order lessons that we call negative zones. Sometimes teachers think kids don't know stuff, so they organize low. And so we call that a negative zone. We're actually organizing failure, thinking that they can't handle stuff. And we know that they can handle it. Even though they can't speak English, they already speak Spanish, and they have all kinds of knowledge already, and we shouldn't judge them on their productive control of English. Our teacher perspectives and attitudes, habitudes, I made that word up. Habitual unexamined attitudes may also determine, like Consuelo said, that we had you know, deficit ideology or deficit views. We have to stop that. We have to really you know, let those go and adopt a new lens, a lens of you know, viewing our kids as very knowing that they are valued, that we respect them, that we love them. Okay, next slide, please. And I'm almost done. The critical roles of the teacher. We all know this. Programs do not teach. I don't care if they're digital. I don't care if it's curriculum, adopted curriculum, or that terrible book that the teacher said they had, that they gave them, they don't teach. Methods don't teach either. They facilitate learning and development. And I, as a teacher, and the teachers I've taught, we now choose the methods that help and facilitate learning and development, and cast out all the other ones. The only ones that teach are us, teachers. Only teachers teach. And I include kids also, because you will be teachers as well. You are teachers as well. You're learners and you are teachers as well. So we're the only ones that teach, okay? Not books, not methods, right? Not programs. Okay, next one, please. Next slide. Okay, so what do teachers need to integrate culturally relevant pedagogy into their everyday schooling? Well, one, and see, I have intuition, but I also know teachers. Access to culturally relevant Latino literature, genres, content areas, and resources. I mean, I don't know if people know Giselle in mathematics. You come from such a great civilization, a Mayan civilization, that the Mayans were the only civilization that developed the concept of zero. They were great mathematicians, astronomers, agriculturalists. I mean, they domesticated corn. I mean, there's so many things that we need. And so teachers need culturally relevant Latino literature across genres, content areas, and resources. You need professional development with concrete, right? I can't see what that other one says, with concrete and ways of teaching and engaging students, right? Knowledge, we need knowledge of historical, political, economic, artistic, mathematical, engineering, scientific, agricultural, culinary contributions by Latinos. There are so many incredible contributions that Latinos have made, not just in this century, but you know, for thousands of years. Okay, I'm done. Next one, in Lakesh. I want to end with this. In Lakesh, you are my other me. Tú eres mi otro yo. You are my other me. Si te hago daño a ti, me hago daño a mí mismo. If I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. Si te amo y respeto, me amo y respeto yo. If I love and respect you, I love and respect me. Muchas gracias. Los quiero mucho.
No, muchas gracias a ti. And we also have, you know, some of our educators in the audience that I'm sure have some burning questions. And before we transition to that, there was a thought that I wanted to share because I wanted to hear your thoughts, Dr. Flores, on it. This was one of those last ones that I think was very important that we at least take some time to discuss, because it was feedback that we received that was quite candid. Administrators do not see Latino studies as an important part of curriculum, and therefore do not encourage teachers to infuse Latino history. Administrators play an important role in building school culture, and it is school culture that helps or prevents the infusion of Latino history. Your thoughts on that, Dr. Flores? I know you're a school board member as well, and this is very passionate to you.
Yeah, I want to share as a school board member, because we create policy. And it isn't enough to create the policy. It's, you know, the implementation of it. And so we have to be mindful and also facilitate and teach our administrators the importance of this. And then also from a, how would I say, as a school board member, you know, we have to provide the funds, the time, the resources for professional development. And we are doing that in our district. And that is really, really key. I am, you know, a teacher educator. I have all this, how would you say, different hats, expertise. So when I am speaking at a board meeting, when we're talking about this, you know, it's important. but I think I studied your board members' backgrounds, and they are very, very knowledgeable. And I think just on the ground, we have to provide that staff development for our administrators as well. It's why it's important, and have administrators and teachers together so that they know that this is valued.
It is very much valued, and I appreciate you speaking to that. We're going to go ahead and give the audience an opportunity to share your thoughts. Shannon's going to help once again.
Thanks, Patricia. So again, if you're joining us late, you can use your phone to scan the QR code to jump into the exchange, or navigate to tejoin.com and enter that 9-digit code.
I already see some pretty powerful thoughts. Let's start with the first one there, Shannon. It says, it's crucial that all teachers and administrators see the value of Latino studies and have the resources to do so. How do we reach teachers and administrators who do not see the value in embracing Latino students' culture and experiences? Dr. Flores, your thoughts.
Yes. I have encountered a lot of resistance. But like when Consuelo talked about telling stories, we need to reach their hearts. And sometimes, talking at people doesn't work. Mandating what they're supposed to do. We really have to get to their soul and to their heart before we reach their minds. And sometimes they're, there are biases that they don't even know they have unknowingly. And so that's the way we've been doing it. We reach their hearts and let them tell their stories, and then connect, like the kids said, let's connect our cultures so that we can make visible, who they are, and then share why it's important for Latino kids to know who they are, and they're teachers and administrators. The kids are not objects. Paulo Freire said, we cannot objectify our kids. We have to see them as humans. So that's what I would do. Yeah.
The accountability and the monitoring is critical for implementation, as we all know. Your response to that?
Yes, if we do not monitor and, if you just say, oh, here's the mandate from the state, do it any old way that you want to, forget it. It's not going to be there. It starts with the school board. We are the ones that set the policy. The cabinet then has to direct the principals, and the principals have to be accountable, not just to the cabinet, but to the coordinators, but also to the parents and the kids and the teachers. We're all a team, and we have to be accountable to each other. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And we can't point fingers. We have to facilitate, how we're going to roll it out, how we're going to do it. And when we create success in different schools, in different places with teachers that are willing to do it, then it will just, spread like wildfire. So that's what I think.
Right, and it goes right along with this individual's thought with regard to what are your thoughts on the policy barriers to advancing this agenda?
Well, the policy, you guys have the policy. You have a state mandated curriculum. And the fact that you are, holding your 8th annual Hispanic Latino summit, it's a summit but then where's the implementation, right? You just can't have it as window dressing. Where's the, where does the rubber hit the road, right? And I, as a board member, we check to make sure that people are being supported and it's being done. And we started ethnic studies. I wanted to speak to the students. Kids wanted to have ethnic studies of all different cultures. And so we piloted some program. We're piloting some programs right now in our high schools. And it's the kids are weighing in on it. Teachers are weighing in on it. What is it they need? And so we're moving along. So I think that's what we have to do.
I think this is an important thought too. What's the best way to answer an Anglo parent that doesn't understand bilingual education?
I've encountered many occasions, and I always ask the parent, why do you, what is it that you don't understand about bilingual education, or what are your thoughts about it? And so I listen to them first, and I'm respectful. And then I say, okay, now let me share with you what my understanding of bilingual education is, and why I view it as important, and why it will be an asset to not just the children who don't speak English, but also to your child, because your child will grow up bilingually, and it will enhance, your child.
Thank you for sharing your response to that. This last one, how do you feel about teachers knowing how to properly say the names of their students? This one comes up quite often in my personal experience traveling through schools. Senora Kickbusch, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first and foremost is everyone's name matters. So I always say when a teacher, for example, I'm Consuelo, and people want to automatically make me a Consuela because I'm a female. So I very much, in a gentle, diplomatic way, say, my name is Consuelo. And the idea is to approach it with humility, but also to bring the other person to understand what it must feel like. A lot of times people want to say, I'm Connie. I say, yo no soy Connie de nadie. That was not my name. And then I say the story. It is my mother's name. Would you want to disrespect your mother? And people say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. I've heard others say that. I said, well, I thank you for honoring me by saying my name. So I think children, we come from a legacy and a history where we even changed our name because we wanted to fit in. And that's not no longer who we are as a nation. It's about inclusiveness. The only other thing I want to share real quick, bilingual education and dual language. How is it that bilingual education has a negative interpretation, but dual language, the Anglo community is the first to want their kids because they know that globally they will have an advantage. So we need to then talk about the stigma about the bad rap that bilingual education has received, and how now the popular term is dual language. And I know there are differences in methodologies and application, but again, it's about perception. To me, that's the most dangerous word in our English language.
It is a conversation that happens quite often with regard to some of our students that, may have some challenging names that are hard to pronounce. As a parent, that has happened to me as well. I got a little one that's 6. I named her a certain way, and then she gets called a different way. And then she tells me, Mommy, pero no es mi nombre. She'll tell me it's not my name. And I say, Mommy, you just have to help them to pronounce it correctly. So just from personal experience, I can relate. And like I said, in my travels, I've heard that discussion happen quite often. But very well said, Senora Kickbusch. Thank you, Dr. Flores, for your powerful messages and knowledgeable presentation. I really hope that our educators and our administrators walk away with learning a little bit more than what they knew with regard to Hispanic Latino studies. Today was such a powerful day. It was amazing to have it start with our students. So we're going to have it end with our students, what our amazing students are doing here in the School District of Palm Beach County, and all the celebrations that, we ensure that they have an opportunity to celebrate their culture, their customs, their traditions, so that they can take pride and feel empowered and motivated and have a sense of belonging. A special thank you to all of our partners and sponsors, Flagler Bank, Midas Education, Thought Exchange, the Hispanic Bar Association, Florida Alas, Circe, Denny's, Corolla, Barnhart, and Shipley, and Alas as well. Thank you, everyone, and let's enjoy this last piece.